So, obviously Axminster's smallish market town. It's got a very loyal customer base, and obviously at this time of year we would normally get some holiday trade as well. Archway Bookshop is obviously a bookshop and sells majority newly published books. We've got the best part of 6,000 books within the shop.
How long has your business been operating?
So there's been a bookshop here in Axminster, in this building actually, since 1966, but obviously it's been through multiple owners. I've owned the shop for roughly 18 months. I bought the shop in January 2018.
How were things going before the COVID pandemic struck?
Actually really well. So there's been a bounce back for bookshops. So people probably have read in the press that over the years print sales have kind of reduced in bookshops, and independent bookshops have closed. But actually just prior, probably the last 2, maybe 3 years, there's been an increase in bookshops, and actually it's gone really well. And I'd had a pretty good year. So on the whole, well.
How many people do you employ?
So I employ 3 people, three part-timers. Tim, that some people will probably know, Tim Pritchard, he used to own the shop before me, so he works 3 days a week. Someone called Rachel Tattersell, again used to work in the shop about 7 years ago. She works 2 days a week, and then Liz Stonex is part-time, works on a Friday and offers some cover between times as well. He's actually worked for several years here.
What assistance has the government, central or local, provided during this challenging time to you and your business?
Okay, I guess initially from a central government, but it was distributed by local government, so by East Devon District Council. I was able to apply for a small business grant that was £10,000, and that helped support me to pay some of the bills that I'd been building up prior to lockdown, and obviously paid for some of the loss, but not all of the loss of trade. That we were also able, if we wanted to apply for a business bounce back loan, which would be repayable after 2 years, I think.
How did you personally cope during the lockdown?
Well, it's been quite interesting because I've never stopped working, so I made a decision very quickly that the shop needed to try and continue trading. Regardless of the lockdown, maybe in a different way. So it's been interesting for me because from a personal perspective, I was probably even busier trying to get different innovations up and running during the beginning of the pandemic, and then I traded through. I'll probably talk about it a bit later, but in more of a virtual way.
Were you able to operate your business remotely?
So we basically innovated, and so we ended up with almost 2 shops. One was the physical shop that obviously we had to shut, but we created a online shop on our website. So all 6,000 books in Archway Bookshop are actually on the website, along with some toys and games and some other things. I think we took a view a couple of weeks leading into lockdown that it was likely to happen, so I kind of began that work 2 weeks before, and then in the first couple of weeks of lockdown, and then obviously we physically shut the shop, but then we moved into actively promoting the website, offering customers either a postal service, so we would post out to their addresses, a click and collect service, the back end of the lockdown, so that people could safely pick up books from outside of the shop, and then we did some home delivery service for Axminster and Collerton and the local kind of villages and towns. So we've been pretty active. I think it's really honest to say that we worked really hard to do that, and we felt it was really important for the business and also for the community to actually continue offering books. But we probably traded about 25% of what we would normally trade during the lockdown period.
Could you tell me a little bit more about the adjustments you've made in your shop itself?
Yeah, so we've had to make quite a lot of adjustments actually. So Archway Bookshops, it's a reasonable size, but it's got some real pinch points about where people pass and things. So we're currently we allow 2 people in the shop at any one time, or or a family bubble. We've marked out on the floor, some sort of floor mats and some taping to try and keep people distant. We ask people to sanitise their hands before they come in and before they touch books. We've had to purchase some perspex screens for the till area as well, and obviously lots of different posters and different bits reminding people. So it's actually worked quite well, and customers have been really good at following the rules. There is a bit of an impact to that because obviously I can only have so many people within the shop at any one time, and that potentially affects sales. People are pretty good at waiting and queuing.
What short-term consequences do you envisage will take place upon your business resulting from COVID?
So I think when the shop first opened, there was so obviously some real national messaging about people needing to support the local shops. And that definitely happened, and that's continued to happen. I think it would be fair to say that slightly dropped off. I think if I was to be honest, I kind of expected and planned to maybe trade a little bit less than I would have last year. So I think there will be a short term impact of that. And I think it's really important for the independent bookshops, but also independent shops in Axminster as well as myself, that we try and maintain that customer loyalty. It's really important, and I think it's going to be really important, particularly important for this year, to get us through to next year.
What do you think might be the long-term consequences on your business?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think I've been, so grateful that my customers have kept loyal with me and with the shop both during the pandemic or the lockdown and then afterwards. And I'm quietly confident that will continue. I think listening to the news, there's some uncertainty about what might happen over the next few months. Hopefully things will be fine. If we don't have to do another lockdown, then actually I feel fairly positive moving into through Christmas time and into next year. And actually, if we do have to do something slightly different, then I feel reasonably confident because we've innovated and we've got the website and things as well. So yeah, I think there's a level of uncertainty, but I feel quietly optimistic as well.
So what else have you been doing on social media?
Yeah, so we've, particularly during lockdown and actually carrying on, we've really used and developed our social media channels, particularly Instagram and Facebook. So we were one of the first bookshops in the country to use the new Facebook development, which was that you could put your online store on Facebook. So we've done that, so that's been an innovation. It was a really good way of communicating with customers during lockdown, and continues to be so, about what books come in. So we've been videoing books, photographing books, talking about books, and then posting those onto Facebook and Instagram. We had a really beginning to be developed children's book group that was meeting here in this part of the bookshop just before lockdown, and then unfortunately we obviously had to cancel that, but we've begun to move that online. So we've now got a kind of a book club and a book reading for younger children online, and then we are looking to develop some author events online, and we're really excited to be doing that, so probably using Facebook Live and maybe Zoom as well.
What advice would you give to people who are still perhaps a little bit concerned about going out and shopping?
Well, we obviously, completely understand that there are going to be some people who potentially are still shielding, who are concerned to come out. I guess my reassurance to them is that we make it as safe as we possibly can within the shop. We limit the number of people in. We ask people to use hand gel. We get people to keep distant as well, and we regularly wipe down appropriately the shop. But for those that really are worried about doing that, they can ring us at any time to order a book. I've spoken about the online bookshop, and they can view books there as well. Email us. There are lots of different ways that they can contact us to order books or to actually ask advice about books as well. So we can do that.
Generally, Bridport is a vibrant little town. I think Realm of the Retired is the order of the day, and I've always said that if you can walk outside your business and look to the left, look to the right and see green trees, what else can you wish for? We are started originally in 1896 as a gentleman's outfitter, making breeches and suits and cutting suits and so forth. And in more recent years we've become a hatter as opposed to a milliner, and we supply hats all around the world. We've supplied headwear to various different societies, groups, and bowler hats to Tristan da Cunha for Remembrance Day, and cricket teams, and the only cricket team in England who play in bowler hats. We supply all their hats for nothing, and we do a huge diversity of headwear.
How many hats do you have in the store?
Oh,
do you reckon?
It'd be impossible to count. Yeah. It's got to be over 1,000.
Wow.
Certainly over 1,000. But then a lot of stuff doesn't even come in here. So it's always turning. And we do a tremendous amount of accessories, bow ties, cravats. If you really want a collar stud, or if you want some snuff, we do that. And if we have the largest selection of moustache wax in the empire, and we're just quirky, traditional, and people seem to enjoy the place. So long may it continue.
How was trading going before the COVID pandemic struck?
Just after Christmas, it always inherently goes quiet because there are not really many tourists about. Those with our children who've gone off to university, come on holiday, but it's never really that vibrant. Things were going along perfectly as normal. We were expecting obviously an upturn in business with doubling of the population, but it didn't happen, and we just got to accept it. It's happened time and time before, and just get on with it. I hear so many people saying, oh, business is terrible and so forth, but quite honestly, I think there's too much greed. Because you did such figures last year, you've got to do double this year. And, bring it back a bit of humanity into business. Accept. Just accept. Don't be idiotic, but be sensible.
Where do you get the majority of your stock from?
All around the world, as far afield as Brazil, Ecuador, Costa Rica, America, Australia, South Africa, Swaziland, everywhere.
Was that disrupted then because of COVID to try and get the stock in?
Fortunately, because we've always stocked, we maintained very high stocks, we have not been affected.
Has the government given you any assistance, whether central or local government?
We got the government grant thing for rates and so forth. We got that one, and we got a little assistance in terms of the business, because one half of the business we're not operating. Because of course, due to the pandemic, there aren't big occasions such as Ascot, big weddings and so forth. We're doing hardly any of that at all, but fortunately this side of the business is carrying it. It's a very strong side of the business. Because I suppose for Ascot we generally do a couple of 100 hats, and all of a sudden nothing. But fortunately, be sensible.
What I think people would be interested to know, what's going to happen to the Bridport Hat Festival?
Not that I started it 10 years ago or so, not that I have too much to do with it now. I did it for 8 years, and that was quite enough. And it was the most ridiculous idea I think I've ever come up with. But it brings a lot of enjoyment to a lot of people. Unfortunately, I do believe this year, obviously gatherings and so forth, it's off, but I'm sure it'll come back with great esteem.
Were you able to operate the business remotely at all?
No, an old fella, but we do not operate a internet service. We do mail order and so forth, and with sizings and so forth on headwear, you've got to know what you're talking about. You've got to know, you've got to try it on. Anybody who tries to buy a hat online is a waste of time. 10 to 1, you'll spend the big game of sending hats backwards and forwards that don't fit.
To what extent were your staff supported during this period?
All the staff were on furlough. We couldn't do anything at all. I must admit they've been extremely supportive ever since we've opened temporarily, because we're still not open full time. But no, we've all mucked in and so forth. There's nothing we can do about it, so let's get on with it. And my staff, I have the most brilliant staff you could possibly wish for, and they all know what they're talking about, and there's a heck of a lot to know in the hat industry. Sizes, and you can look at a person and tell whether the hat suits him, or you can recommend and so forth, and my staff are top rate. They all should be given a degree in hatology.
Can you tell me a bit about what you do at the shop and what your role is?
I help out on the shop floor, same as everybody else. I also deal with a lot of the online stuff, so the website, Facebook, Twitter, all of the social media, when I've got time to get to the computer, which isn't all that often at the moment because we're on slightly reduced hours since the COVID lockdown. But we seem to be just as busy as we ever were, so we're more sort of crammed into the available hours. We're busy. Snooks is all about the experience as well, which you can't get online. We're happy to deal with people phoning up, and we'll take the payment over the phone and we'll post it out to them, but we don't actually sell online.
What short-term consequences have you experienced?
Bridport's population generally, I believe, is 12 to 15,000. As a rule, you will find that during the summer it'll double. So you've got 24, 28,000. This year you've got another quarter added onto that because people aren't going abroad. People have been encompassed with their own homes, and they're fed up and they want to spend some money and get out there. People seem to have saved a lot of money, and it's a delight to receive them in wanting a Panama or wanting a decent piece of headwear, and they're only too pleased to spend their money. And long may it continue. Come the winter, well, I think that's just time to be sensible.
Can you tell me a little bit about the adjustments you've made in the shop?
We have two shops next door to each other, number 30 and 32. 32 is the traditional, 30 is the ladies and the wedding side of things. So we're not operating the wedding side for obvious reasons, and that is sealed off, and we're dealing with everything through one shop. And we've brought a lot of stock through. All our Panamas have come through and so forth, but we put in measures of protection where nobody's allowed to touch a hat. When you come in, you sanitize, you put on a piece of it's cellophane shaped in a hat. We put that on, and that is all sanitized and so forth, and the staff will measure you and put the hat on. And then just the general ruling of 2 meters apart, 1 meter apart, whatever it might be at the present minute, until it changes to half a meter. So we've done every precaution we possibly can.
So how supportive was Snooks whilst you were away during the lockdown?
Oh, fine. I mean, we had kind of an unexpectedly long break, but we were all furloughed as per the government scheme. I just posted a few things up during the lockdown, just to let people know that we were still existing. Hello, we're still here. Facebook. Otherwise, it was just once Roger and Monica had started to develop plans for how the measures were going to be when we came back, then we came in for a couple of socially distanced meetings out in the garden, and I wrote up all of the procedures, put them up online, did up the posters, and then that was it. We opened, hit the ground running, and everything's been pretty good.
The customers been obeying the rules?
By and large, yes. I mean, there's always a few that maybe don't quite understand what the rules are, but we have to implement them. It's government policy. We're obliged, so we just try and explain it in as nice a way as possible.
What about the long-term consequences of COVID on your business? How do you think that's going to have an impact?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think long-term, one's got to try and read the market and do the best one can and be careful. Careful and sensible. Any fool can buy the stuff. Selling it is another matter. We've always been generally successful in the past and come through. When the last war we were bombed, Mr. Hitler decided he didn't like the look of our shop and bombed us. So we've come through that. We've come through the 1418. We've come through the 3945. With bombs and all the rest of it. So praise be to matey out there that we come through this one.
What advice would you give to people who are still a little concerned about returning to their local shops?
Listen, I don't believe there's any fear. I cannot see there's any fear. Go by adhere to the rules, stick to the rules, and you'll be fine.